Hello and welcome to Camino Talks. I'm Sean from Follow the Camino, and today I'm talking with Kelly Gilfillan from Tennessee, who is one of the co-founders of Camino for Good. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Perhaps you might tell me and the listeners a bit about yourself, your background and who you are.
Well, I grew up in America in Tennessee, and my background professionally has always been in marketing, and I was in the healthcare business for a while and then started my own business in 2009. I'm an online news publisher. So I have 5 news sites in Middle Tennessee area that are just daily news for the city that they're in. And it's the place where I grew up, so I really enjoy serving the community in this way. And I actually trained for the Camino in 2018 with my friend Susan Depew. We met because of that training.
Okay.
And on the Camino, I decided to sell my business and came back and did so. But I'm still working at that company. But we started Camino for Good last year during the pandemic, and it has been quite the journey and very fulfilling work. But it's like everything I do is pretty much about marketing, advertising. I love to write. And
okay.
So.
Very good. So I understand I suppose your first kind of connection with the Camino came in around 2017, 18. Like, what did you know about the Camino before then, and why did you discover it?
My friend Bill Austin, who is one of the partners in Camino for Good, he had been on 2 different Caminos. He had done the French Way and the Norte, and I saw just a really beautiful change in him as he went on those journeys, and he came back and he stayed with us at our house for a while after. And when I had a big life change coming, I reached out to him and just said, do you think it would be good for me to go? And I had thought about going before, but life circumstances, and I owned my business and I didn't feel like I could leave. But once you decide to go, it always seems to work out. The Camino provides a path there. And so it's thanks to him that I went. But Susan Depew also, we met. I decided to go in December of 2017. And then I met Susan in January, and we trained for 4 months. And we didn't hike it together, but we were there at the same time, and we ran into each other multiple times. So that was great.
Okay. And in terms of training for those few months, what did that involve? Was it kind of heavy duty training? Were you fit?
Well, I felt like I'm a runner, so I was running half marathons and was in pretty decent shape, but running shape and hiking shape are 2 totally different things. And running, you're trying to have no weight on you, and it's how fast can you go, or meet your personal best. But hiking is about longevity, or you're trying to carry what you have to, your life on your back. and it's a different set of muscles too. So Susan had already done a bunch of research. She was giving herself this adventure for her 70th birthday, and she was very wise. She had looked into what kind of training needed to be done. She had gone to her personal athletic trainer, and he had worked with her on a schedule. So I just followed along with her schedule. And we did a lot of things, a lot of weekend hikes where we went the 12 miles. We tried to do as many days as we could that would be equivalent to what we would be doing over there. Yes. And then I threw in a couple of really tough, challenging hikes that are, Tennessee has a lot of hills, not necessarily mountains until you get over to East Tennessee, but plenty of hills to train on. And we just had a blast. We invited all of our friends to come walk different days with us and told stories. And I started my Camino when I met Susan, really, in January of 18.
Okay. So you mentioned you had some life-changing events, and you mentioned your friend who'd done several Caminos, he had changed. So it seems, talking to a lot of people, either the Camino is an adventure, or people are going there because they're at a major shift in their life stages, or they're looking for an answer to something. Does that kind of resonate with you?
Definitely, yes. I think the way I tell people about the Camino is just to describe how you meet people. I mean, you're just walking along the path, and you may pass somebody a couple of different times because you stop to take a picture, which I took a lot of pictures. Or you may end up walking at kind of at the same pace as them, or you may end up staying at the albergue 2 nights in a row. The same albergues, 2 different cities, and you just start talking to people and you start meeting people. I heard stories about, I lost my wife and I'm carrying her ashes in my backpack, and I'm meeting my kids in Santiago, and we're going to Finisterre to put her ashes in the ocean. I met a mother who was there with her son. He was trying to kick a drug addiction. I was going through a divorce. I met a lot of people going through divorce. So lots of empathy there. And then, for Susan, it was, she wanted to reconnect in a different way with her spiritual side. And it was the adventure.
Yes.
So it was more about having 7 weeks to work on myself and figure out my what next for me. I was getting a divorce, and I needed some kind of clarity on who I wanted to be go forward.
Yeah. So you came back and
sold to all of those.
You came back and sold your business. So
mm-hmm.
Did you get that clarity that you wanted? Was that just?
Yes. Yeah, I had been really sick about 4 days on the Camino, and had gotten to Leon, gotten some medicine. I was really starting to feel better, and hiked to Osabrero or up to Osabrero. And I just, something about that place, I had so much peace. I had overcome some adversity that I was very sick and I was walking 4 days with a fever before I could get to a doctor, and didn't know I had a fever for the first 2 days. And it was just maybe something coming out of that fog of the fever, and then climbing that mountain, and I just had peace about it. I knew that it was the right thing to do.
Okay. And then, so I mentioned you're one of the co-founders of Camino for Good. So perhaps you might kind of explain what that is and why you started that.
Well, it was Susan's idea, my hiking buddy, and we were doing a virtual race across Tennessee. So this is an actual race that people do every spring and summer. They do 1,000-mile run across Tennessee. And some people, you do it in stages. You don't necessarily, some people will just do it all the way straight through. But it was a challenge to do it from May 1st to August 31st. And because of the pandemic, there was the only thing I could really do was go out and hike. And so we would mask up and hike together. And we have a beautiful park where we meet 3-4 times a week anyway. So we started walking every day, and we both signed up for the challenge. It was $60 to sign up for this challenge, and they provided all the tools, but it was just very simple because it had always been a real race. It didn't need to be virtual. And really all they provided was a spreadsheet for you to put your miles in and the idea of the challenge. And then they kind of just sat back and we did it all, right? Yeah. So after about 3 weeks, I think, into that challenge, Susan said, I have an idea and I want to talk about it tomorrow. I said, okay. So we talked about it for about 3 days. She just said, there's 200,000 people a year doing the Camino, and none of them get to do it this year. So we don't know when people are gonna be able to do it again. Why don't we do a virtual walk across the Camino de Santiago? And I was like, that's brilliant. And I had in my company and on some nonprofit boards that I sat on, I had been involved in the creation of apps before. And so I knew enough to be dangerous, but not necessarily enough to be effective. So after we discussed it a few times, I said, well, we need somebody who understands data, how to organize the data, how to build out basically a platform. And I had I had 5 members of my Camino family that I had met, and we still all talk every week. But Lindsay from Australia was one of my Camino family, and he is all about data. He loves data and dreams about data, which is the opposite of me. And so one morning we just pulled up WhatsApp, and we just did a video message to him and just said, this is what we're dreaming about. And he texted back immediately and said, I'm in. It was like 4 o'clock in the morning in Australia, but he said, I'm in. And then we built out the idea a little bit more. We started a Slack channel, and we started building a business plan. And very shortly, we decided, we wanted to be doing good with whatever money we raised. And with that model in Tennessee, it looked like it could be a profitable model. Yes. And that maybe we could really do some good. And we kept saying, do some good, do some good. And that's why our name ended up being Camino for Good. And then we invited Bill, who had talked me into going on the Camino, and his daughter, Shaylin, who's also a pilgrim. And the 5 of us were the co-founders. And once we had that mission, we knew the business model, and we knew what we could build out. We knew kind of what we wanted it to look like. But once we had that mission of helping the albergues, everything started falling into place. And I was on vacation. I had driven all the way up to Rhode Island to be with my kids. And I rented a place, and we all came and sheltered together, just did a little pandemic family moment. And my son-in-law had just started working for a web development company. And so I told them our crazy idea. And he said, can I tell my bosses? And I said, sure. Well, it turns out his boss, Veronica, grew up in Spain, loved the idea. And she and her partner, Fabio, came on as our developers at a very discounted price. So we didn't have a lot of money. And so we all invested, we built the app out, and then Fabio and Veronica really loved what we were doing and thought that they could contribute. So they ended up investing in the company as well. So now we have 7 partners. And we've raised, we've done 2 challenges. We did a challenge in January, kind of as a New Year's resolution challenge called Walk for Good. And on March 1st, we're doing another challenge called March to Santiago. And that's a challenge to do 3 miles a day for 150 days. And you'll arrive for the Feast of St. James, because it's a holy year. Yes. For James. So that's a synopsis of our entire business. But it's been a beautiful experience, and the feedback just from the people using the app has been really heartening. That our dream of trying to bring our Camino experience to that app is somewhat working, and then we've been able to give away 26,100 American dollars to 9 different albergues. And when we interview the albergues, we just say, what's it going to take to get you to June? And they are so open, and just these are all of my expenses, and this is what it would take. And so that's our goal, is to try to get everybody to June. And we're going to keep selling the app and keep trying to find more albergues, and hopefully it'll open up this summer. But even if it doesn't, we'll just keep trying to help.
Yeah. So I'll come back to the app in a minute. But so the albergues that you're helping and talking to, can you maybe describe a couple of what are the challenges at the moment? Like what are some of them going through since basically March of last year, I imagine?
Well, so many of them are don't have other jobs. Most of them don't have other jobs. And so we say this on our website: no pilgrims equals no income. I mean, they have no way to pay for, a lot of them are in different situations. Some of them are renting the home that is the albergue, and some of them are owning it or have mortgaged it. We have had all 3 of those situations. Somebody owns it, but they still owe the taxes. And so you have that monthly expense of anywhere from $750 a month to $2,000 a month is what we've seen on that. And then the running of it, just so that they can live there, because it's their homes too. You've got the heat, the coal or the heat or whatever it takes to run it. And then they're just living expenses of eating. It's all very simple what they've laid out and what they're showing us that they need. And all they want to do is hold on and be there. But we're working with privately owned hostels. So in America, we would call that for-profit hostel.
Yeah.
And then we're also working with a lot of donativos that are donation only. And there's just no pilgrims coming through. And if they do, it might be one in a month.
Yes.
So there's just no other way to survive. and I think we've also heard some very heartening stories that, they're, the people that they're renting from have been very patient and let them pay it back. They've had to take out loans. Oh, the other part is a lot of expenses on refurbishing and adapting the hostels to fit all of the new COVID requirements, the government requirements. And so 2 or 3, I think, have had to take out loans to make all the changes to the building. So now on top of their normal living expenses, which were low, they have this mortgage that they have to pay.
And talking to them, do they feel positive for the future, and how will their business survive when, I understand they've got reduced capacity now as well, so even when things pick up, they potentially won't be able to have as many people staying every night in the hostels.
Right. And I'm sure they'll have to adapt what their pricing model was, to meet their expenses. The beautiful thing about working with these albergue owners is how much faith they have. They believe if they hold on, everything will be okay. And they don't know how they're going to hold on. And so when we show up and say, what do you need? They're just, I don't know, it's like they have a little mini party. They're just so excited that God and the Camino have provided. They believe, we were sent to them, and we do too.
Yes.
But all of them want to hang on. None of them are, I never heard anybody say, I'm giving up. And I don't know. I mean, I think there are those who have given up and didn't have any choice, and we just didn't get to them soon enough. But it's all very positive. In fact, one great story, we have this video on our website, Ernesto from Casa de las Sonrisas. I cannot speak Spanish, but that's close. And he told this great story about how he normally in the summer would have a lot of pilgrims, but because he's a donativo, he opens up to anybody. So he also has a lot of tourists.
Yes.
And he said it was probably the most peaceful, meaningful summer experience he'd ever had, because everybody who came was a pilgrim. So it was always just this spiritual connection to everybody who was walking through his door, whereas before he had a mix. He had the tourists and he had the pilgrims, but he had nothing but pilgrims. And so it actually was he said it was the hardest year of his life, but the best year of his life.
Okay. And have you any kind of intention of running an albergue yourself, maybe?
I think every pilgrim dreams about that at some point. I don't think so. But I would love to be in service to the albergue owners in some way. We all plan on going over to Spain as soon as we can. I was supposed to hike the Portuguese route last May and didn't get to go. And so I'm ready to. That's why I ended up going to Rhode Island, because that was the time I was supposed to be in Portugal with my daughter. So I can't really see it, but never say never. I would love to live over there, even if it were for a short period of time. It's just one of the most beautiful places. I've traveled a lot.
Yes.
I think Ireland, Scotland, and Spain are my favorite places in the world.
Very good. Good countries to choose from.
Yes. I'm an Irish girl, so.
Do you have any kind of relatives or kind of ancestors from Ireland or from this part of the world?
No, well, I mean, back in the 1600s, but all of my family came over in the probably, I think 1750s on my mom's side and a little bit later on my dad's side. But my family's been in America for a very long time. They
Okay.
probably kicked us crazy Irish people out, you know. I'm a Collins.
Okay. So you mentioned you're going to be doing the March to Santiago challenge from the 1st of March, and I understand it's more than just a kind of a virtual kind of walk. You've got participation from John Briley as well. That's
Yes.
correct. So what are you doing for that challenge?
So the app itself is from St. John to Santiago. And one of the first things we did, and I still can't believe we did this, but we reached out to John Brierley and he answered. And we just said, would you like to be involved in some way? And he said, absolutely. And we said, we want content for every city. There's 207 stops on the app. And we said, could you share some of your content with us? We're thinking we'd like to have that mystical, spiritual part of each of the towns and the history. And he said, absolutely, take what you want. And we couldn't believe it. So we don't have that on every city because we like to kind of mix it up. But we did, I think probably on 75 of the cities, we have John Brierley's content and a link to his website. So you can buy his book, of course. And then we also have pilgrim stories, audio files, people from all over the world who are just telling, and somewhere between 1 and 4 minutes, something that happened to them on the Camino. Mine is at Cruz de Ferro. That's one of my favorite stories. And then we also have just inspirational quotes and things along the way. So the March to Santiago is that 150-day challenge, which averages 3 miles a day. And we are building out content because our kind of subtitle for the March Santiago is 150 days of hope and healing. And so Susan, our partner, has built out content for the 23 weeks. And everything is focused on, all of us have been isolated. All of us have been through some kind of hardship. Many of us have lost someone. And so just for the last year, or maybe a little over a year, we all have something that we're going to deal with. And so she's building out some amazing inspirational content that everybody will receive every Sunday. And for example, one of the weeks will focus on the word joy. And she has meditation practices and inspirational quotes, different things you can read, some poems. And it's just a different thing for you to think about every day while you're walking. And to hopefully just, because that's what you do on the Camino. You usually arrive there with some kind of question or some kind of goal. And so we think this will we love our app and we think our app is wonderful, but we think this might help deepen the experience for people who are seeking that hope and healing. But it's there for people who just want to have the challenge. And but I'm excited about this particular March and how we're doing it a little bit differently.
Okay. So you mentioned you're kind of a runner as well. So I'm interested in the, I suppose, the longevity of these challenge apps, because I know if you're a runner, you've got Strava, Fitbits, that's well established, but are the virtual challenges, and it's not just your app, there's other kind of companies doing it. Mm-hmm. Are they just around while people cannot travel, or do you think they'll kind of continue for kind of walkers as opposed to runners?
I think we've actually talked about this a lot, because as a business model, you want longevity. You want to know how you're going to business. Well, we want to keep our pilgrims around. So our plan is to build out, there's 28 different routes in Spain, but then there's also the Portuguese way, and there's Caminos in South America. There's the Pacific Coast Trail in America. There is in North America. And there's also the Appalachian Trail. So I think we really have endless opportunities to build out the trails, but to do it as well as we did the French way, we have to get over there and take the pictures, because we're very picture heavy. Yes. We really want people to see what it's like to walk. So from St. John to Roncesvalles, we're showing you that entire walk, the up and over the mountain, and you're seeing we have over 3,000 pictures in there. And so we would need to build out that many photos, but we are building out Finisterre, Muxia route, the Primitivo and the Norte, hopefully by the end of the year, so that our pilgrims will continue to walk. Because the secret of the Camino is once you finish, you go, oh, my life is the Camino. So you just keep going.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what we hope, is that we'll be able to do that, and that we'll be able to continue to be there. And I don't know exactly what our mission will look like, because right now our business is the app, but our mission is the albergues, and we don't know what it's going to look like when it opens back up for them. But we know a lot of them have closed, so we can also see the possibility of helping people open albergues along the way. So, but yeah, we do talk about that a lot, and that's our plan for right now. The big, hairy, audacious goal would be to do routes all over the world. Yeah. There's one over in South Africa that I would love to do.
And I think it's great, even with just kind of one route at the moment, you've already kind of helped a number of albergues possibly stay afloat and avoid them closing, which is great. Yeah,
we're very blessed. I mean, every time we give the money away, we feel like we're the ones being blessed, because they are the ones who are giving. They've all come to be albergue owners because they walked a Camino. Some of them walked 30 Caminos. Some of them walked 8 and became. So we interviewed them last Thursday. We had all 9 on, and by Zoom, and they all told their stories and of how they became albergue owners, and shared what the situation was for them right now. But every one of them said, we'll be here. Come see us.
Yes.
And so that was just inspiring as could be.
That's excellent. So just before we wrap up, maybe what are your kind of key or most important memories of your own Camino on the Camino Frances? People you met, or
Well, I think that the first day is something I'll never forget. The excitement, the build up to that, but then actually doing it, and just the scenery that day is probably the most beautiful on the whole thing, but everything else rivals it. But that is the most beautiful scenery ever.
That's the climb over the mountains, the Pyrenees, and back.
Yeah, St. John through the Pyrenees, and over the mountain and into Spain. And it's also the longest day. It's a lot of miles or kilometers. And then Cruz de Ferro. I think that people hopefully learn about that before they go. So I mean, it's a emotional experience for everybody I've ever met that walked. It's one of the first things you usually end up asking about. And
so what is that then for people who are listening?
So the Cruz de Ferro is a cross that is standing kind of in the middle of nowhere. And the legend is that St. Francis walked the Camino and then he placed it there. And that's not the original cross, I think, because it's been standing so long, they've replaced it several times. I believe the original cross is in Burgos at the cathedral. Or it's definitely in Burgos, but I can't remember where. And, but you bring something to the cross. Some people in America will bring stuff for people who are ill, people who want healing, they'll carry stuff for other people. For me, it was, I brought 3 different shells for my 3 daughters, and but then I picked stuff up along the way and kind of let that represent something I needed to let go. And when I got there, I stayed in Rabadell del Camino, I believe, and the night before, listened to the monks do the Benedictine chanting. It was just a very holy experience, and the Camino I was staying at couldn't have been any friendlier. But it was just a great preparation. I set off the next morning, and it was something from a movie, just walking through the fog and all of the flora and fauna, the sun rising, got up at 5 everybody says you want to see the sunrise on the way. Well, it stayed foggy, but we just get there and there's just a power in that place. And there's a pilgrim prayer
Yeah.
that some people will say if they believe in that. But it's about, let this walk represent my dedication to you, and when it comes time for me to meet you, please consider that I have made this journey. And I'm totally simplifying that prayer. It's much more complicated than that, and much more beautiful than that. But I was able to just lay down the burdens of my divorce and know that I was going to be okay. And it's just symbolic, of what we all need to do. We're all carrying something, whether it's in our backpacks or in our hearts. And to have the opportunity to physically make that journey and just set it down was incredible.
It's fantastic. Fantastic. So hopefully you will be able to make the Camino later on this year. I'm certainly hoping myself to travel with some friends in September, but who knows?
That's my plan. Maybe you can help me out with that.
We'll see.
That's what you do, right?
That is indeed. And as we spoke previously, your colleague and your co-founder Susan, she was actually a kind of a client of ours.
She is. Yeah, she used Follow the Camino, and it was just a great experience for her. She really thought long and hard. Do I want to just keep walking and not know where I'm going, which is what I wanted. And a lot of people want that, but it's also not the right choice for a lot of people. So having a service like Follow the Camino that'll help set it up for you, I think it's a game changer for the people who just need that comfort, or maybe they're a little older, or they maybe never traveled by themselves before, to know that you have that assurance. And I loved all the different services that were there once we got there that we didn't really know about, but all of your clients probably do know about it, where that you can send your pack ahead if you get injured, or if you just physically can't carry the weight. I mean, I think all of that's amazing. And the more services you can provide to allow for more people to do it I think what y'all are doing is really important, because I in my heart, I want as many people to hike it as possible. That's the other great thing about the app or we hope, is that it will inspire others to actually go. We hear that a lot. I've always wanted to do it and never thought I could. And now I have walked it with your app. And so I know I'm going to Spain. And when I hear that, it's just amazing.
Brilliant.
So maybe we'll get to meet in September.
I hope so. That
would be cool.
Well, Kelly, I want to thank you for taking your time to talk with us. It's been very interesting, and I wish you all the best with the virtual challenge and the March to Santiago.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll talk again in the future.
Yeah, that would be great. Look forward to it.
All right. Thank you now. Bye-bye.
Buen camino.
Buen camino.